what the fracture situation was, but you could tell her arm was broken, and because it was unstable, and just kind of feel the anatomy there. And so we basically had to operate on her 3 times.
Really?
That's pretty horrific for a 1-month-old. And she wasn't done. She was going to need plastic surgery for skin grafting for the burn on the top of her forearm. That was very, very difficult. And then there was another child who was probably more like 2 or 3 years old, whose arm had been crushed, and it had some type of emergency surgery there in Port-au-Prince, which basically, from our perspective, hadn't gone well. I think she was at risk to lose her hand. I mean, both of these little girls were. But, hopefully, their healing turns out good.
Do you have any plans to go back down and make another trip? Or?
Yes, I'll be going back. Don't know exactly when. The next, right now, there's plenty of doctors and nurses that are rotating in and out at the hospital there. And we now do have X-ray capabilities there. And I'll be going back, I don't know when, probably sometime late in the spring, because the next project is to develop some type of rehabilitation program for the children, is to turn the orphanage back into an orphanage to take care of those children that need that. And then the Chidasa Foundation, which is the faith-based group out of Knoxville that raised all the money and built this facility, has developed a relationship with another hospital just across the border in Haiti. And the plan is to try and construct some type of children's rehabilitation facility there. Because there are children that were amputees, and they need artificial limbs, and they'll need ongoing artificial limbs as they grow, and they'll need physical therapy. So that's the plan.
What was the working conditions down there? I know you guys were short on a lot of supplies that you really needed.
Supplies were an issue, and also the operating rooms were an issue. The hospital was built with 2 very nice operating rooms, but they had never done anything more than eye surgery. Eye surgery could be very complicated, but the eye surgeons would bring instruments with them that they needed. So they had very few operating room instruments there, and they had no X-ray. And so those 2 operating rooms, there was a group from California called Operation Rainbow that was using those 2 ORs. And they came, they do this type of disaster stuff. They were well-versed from earthquake experiences in California, and they were invaluable. And they came with 3 orthopedic surgeons, nurses, and basically the equipment they needed to do a lot of things. And then we had 3 operating rooms that we used that really weren't operating rooms. One was a dental room, another 2 were OB/GYN exam rooms. We turned those into operating rooms. They weren't air conditioned, but it was the best we had, and there's just no way we could avoid using it. So we didn't have the ideal operating room situations. And we didn't have X-ray, which meant that we were doing things somewhat blindly. And we had medications we needed. We had antibiotics, we had pain medication. There was always an issue about running out of that, and oxygen also. There was no short supply until probably about the 21st. And then supplies started rolling in more reliably. In the last 3 days I was there, I don't think supplies were an issue. But we about ran out of the external fixation devices, the pins and bars that we were putting on. We're down to the last 2 on the 20th. And then the next morning, we got just a couple of huge box loads of materials that came in from Baton Rouge from the Stryker company. So that kind of kept us going for another couple of days. And that's the way it was. Things were constantly arriving. Through communications from other doctors and friends and colleagues back here in the States. The issue was getting things on the plane. On planes, it was hard to get. It wasn't hard to find what you needed. It was hard to get a plane load of it down there. But we had a wonderful local man who we'd rented his bus, and he would go back and forth to the airport and load up supplies. And just the airport was about an hour and a half, 45 minutes away. He would go back and forth. Multiple trips with what we needed.
What was lost my train of thought for a minute. What are the people's spirits when you got there compared to when you left? Were they in any better spirits, or?
Well, there's two groups of people. You have the Haitians who are wounded, and those of us who are trying to take care of them. And I think that the Haitian people, the wounded people's spirits remain high at all times. I mean, they're just remarkable. I mean, they're extremely optimistic people. I mean, they've survived with nothing. So they know how to survive with nothing. And they were grateful to have people who put a roof over their heads and gave them 3 meals a day and took care of their needs for medication and health care. They're wonderful people to work with. And, but I think, on the other side, which is interesting, I think all of us kind of went through peaks and valleys, and at first you're just shocked and stunned and overwhelmed, and then you just kind of, do what you need to do to take care of people, and it kind of keeps you busy, think about it. But then, for me, by the end of the day at night, I mean, you can be exhausted, but your brain just won't shut down. Just all the images of the day. And say, well, did I do the right thing? Did I do anything wrong? And what do we do today? And what are we going to do tomorrow? And what's going to happen to these people, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? I mean, I don't have the answers, but I mean, these kind of things were just unavoidable questions for all of us. So I think we all had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. A lot of highs and being able to participate in caring for these wonderful people who are so badly hurt. But at the same time, a lot of lows, just realizing that we don't know what happens for them next. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Is there a long-term plan for the recovery in that area?
Well, I don't know what the long-term plan is, but the information that I have is that they're going to have to establish refugee camps, probably between Port-au-Prince and the Dominican Republic border. And then there'll be the need for continued outside support. These people can't support themselves. Everything they need and want is going to have to come from the outside world.
Right.
So that's why the need to develop some type of rehabilitation facility, and especially for the children. But there's many adult amputees that are going to need artificial limbs in order to be able to function. I don't know how somebody who can't walk functions, to tell you the truth, and especially into the future. But they're going to have to develop some type of interim housing situation for 3 million people. They're going to need food, water, shelter, clothing, medical care, and then you're going to have to do something to maintain some type of education for the children, and you're going to have to do something to reestablish some type of economy for the working man. I don't know how that happens. Now, at this point in time, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons is beginning to function as a clearinghouse for patients who need care back in the U.S. And as you may have heard in the news, there's been issues about bringing Haitian patients back into the U.S. And they were kind of getting into Florida and to Pennsylvania. But the goal is to kind of distribute these patients, throughout the country in order to get them care without overstressing any one facility, so that we could, through the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, say, well, we could take 2 people who need this type of reconstructive surgery here in Kent, Missouri, and care for them, hopefully get them healed, get them fixed up and healed up, and get them back to where they can function, and then get them back home. But so we're on the verge of some type of situation like that becoming, operational.
Okay.